Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. This Saturday night, make sure that you walk on over to Walters for UFC 275 as Glover Teixeira will defend his UFC light heavyweight championship for the first time.
Walters is also the best spot in Navy Yard to watch the NBA Finals. Tip at 9 p.m. this Friday.
3 men to the right, 1 to the left of the infield, and Strasburg comes set. Here's the pitch. Change-up, swing and a miss. He strikes out the side. Breaking out the change-up in the bottom of the second inning. A 1-2-3 bottom of the second for Stephen Strasburg.
I'm going to be outcome biased right now, but I thought he looked good. He really did. And, I told him after the game, we talked for a minute. He said he felt good.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Friday, June 10th, 2022, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who was at Lone Depot Park in Miami. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. As you may remember, a few years ago, May 2018, to be precise, there was an auditory illusion, Laurel versus Yanni. It was a name said in a certain way, and to some people, the name sounded like Laurel. To other people, the name sounded like Yanni. It was a pretty fascinating thing, actually.
Laurel.
But the point was that the name could sound one way to one person and an entirely different way to another person. Well, that's sort of what we had with the 2022 Major League debut of Stephen Strasburg on Thursday night. So the Nats lost at the Marlins 7-4 to complete a 3-game sweep. On the one hand, Strasburg gave up 7 runs in 4 2/3 innings, and his velocity wasn't exactly great. On the other hand, Strasburg had 5 strikeouts, and you certainly could make the case that just the fact that he pitched, that he started a Major League game, was a victory in and of itself. So, Mark, Laurel or Yanni, which one was it for Strasburg on Thursday night?
Wow, what a way to come into this episode, Al. I'm impressed with that reference. I'm trying to remember what I heard 4 years ago, whenever that was, when that phenomenon occurred, and I don't remember. I'm going to say whichever one correlates to encouraged versus discouraged by this. And I know what people out there are going to say. I know you're going to look at the 7 runs, especially that last inning, the towering home run he gave up on his last pitch. I know you're going to look at the fastball velocity. And believe me, I noticed that. And that was probably the most discouraging thing to me from the whole night, was that he was throwing 90, 91. I think he hit 92 a little bit. That part, yes, was discouraging. But in the bigger picture here, what I saw was a guy who came out of the start healthy, who was very encouraged himself afterwards about how he felt. He even smiled during his post-game interview with us, which is not something he typically does, even after a good start. And I saw in those middle 3 innings, the second, the third, and the fourth, I saw a Stephen Strasburg who can be a very good big league pitcher still, because he still has an elite curveball and changeup. And if he can find a way to be good enough with his fastball, to command it well enough, to then be able to use those 2 off-speed pitches to get hitters out, I still think there's a chance of him being a pretty effective big league pitcher here.
I kept reminding myself all day during the day Thursday, and certainly watching this game, it's only one game. Don't overreact to this. It's like when you're a fan of an NFL team and you have your week 1 result, and there's always this over-analysis of week 1, and it ends up so often not being indicative at all of what ends up coming. It's tricky. First of all, it's funny. Thursday was the 13-year anniversary of the Nats drafting Strasburg, so that was kind of strange that it played out that way. But yeah, I think this really is one of those outings that you can spin however you want to spin it. The velocity I found troubling, I'll be honest with you. I know he was throwing like 92, 94 in those minor league rehab assignment starts, and I'm getting the velocity numbers from MLB.com, so I don't know if you saw anything different, but it sounds like we saw the same numbers, like 90, 91 for most of the night. And, when he was doing well in the second, third, and fourth innings, it felt like one of those starts. And we've seen this so much this season from a Nats pitcher where, okay, first inning was bad, but then a guy actually settles down and you thought, all right, maybe this ends up being 3 runs in 5 innings, 3 runs in 6 innings. I think we all would have celebrated that. It's how the outing ending, that it leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth. But it's one outing, so it's like to go nuts over this and to say, that's it, he's done, he's shot. Like, no, we got to see a lot more before we have any kind of certainty with him. I find it interesting, though. So he was encouraged with what he did. That might be the most telling thing of all, because He's not someone who is easily pleased. He's not someone who smiles often. Post-game interviews for him often seem like a root canal for the guy. So the fact that he smiled to you, I actually find that pretty encouraging.
I agree 100%. The demeanor, and I'll be honest, I was more interested in that, I think, than almost anything as far as what he was saying. And it was as encouraged as you will ever find him, certainly under circumstances like this. I don't think I've ever heard him talk like that or smile after a loss, after he gave up 7 runs. Certainly not. He felt like he was not trying to make it sound like he had pitched well. He was saying that he felt well. And there's a difference there, of course. But he felt like the results were a product of a lack of execution on his part and also some pitch selection, which we can get to, especially in that last inning, and not a product of not having the stuff that he wanted or not feeling physically right on the mound. So I think that stuff is all very important within this. As far as the velocity goes, that screamed to me a little bit too, because I had heard, from several people that he was 92 to 94, and they were very encouraged by that. And then you see 90, 91. I think there were even a few 89s sprinkled in there. What I also heard after this game, though, from both Davey Martinez and Riley Adams, who caught him, was that they were surprised that that was the number, because just watching the pitches, they thought they had more life on them than that. They thought the fastball had some late life, some late hop on it. Now, I will say he was not getting swings and misses on fastballs. He had, 1 on a fastball. The other 5 came on the curveball or the changeup. So that's a little bit troublesome there. But I think we have to acknowledge a couple of things. It's first start back. He made 3 rehab starts and got up to 83 pitches. As we said all along, it's not the same as pitching in a big league game. And even in a normal spring training, you're going to make 5, 6 starts. So I would describe this as more of like a extended spring training start than anything. And I want to give him a few more before we start reading too much into it. So I think there's a reason to think that can tick up a little bit as well. But I really believe ultimately, because of what I saw from the off-speed stuff, and I think we mentioned this the other night, this is how he's going to have to make his living the rest of his career, being really effective with his curveball and his changeup. So if he can just do enough with the fastball to set himself up for the others, I saw enough tonight in the off-speed stuff to make me think that this can work.
Yeah, and when he got his 5 strikeouts, the off-speed stuff often was what was getting those strikeouts, or at least setting up those strikeouts. So the final line, 7 runs in 4 2/3 innings. Strasburg gave up 8 hits, a home run, 3 doubles, and 4 singles. He issued 2 walks, a hit by pitch, and a wild pitch. Like we said, 5 strikeouts, 83 pitches, 53 strikes versus 30 balls. Strasburg, in the bottom of the first, gave up 3 runs. He gave up a leadoff first pitch bunt single to Jazz Chisholm Jr. toward third base, issued a 2-out 6-pitch walk of Avisail Garcia. Strasburg gave up a 2-out RBI double to Jesus Sanchez through the right side of the infield for a 1-0 Marlins lead. Strasburg gave up a 2-out 2-run single to John Birdie for a 3-0 Marlins lead. By the way, Victor Robles got charged with a throwing error on that play, even though I didn't think he made that bad of a throw to home plate. I thought that was kind of odd. Anyway, Strasburg then settled down and was good. Scoreless second, scoreless third, scoreless fourth inning. He struck out the side in a perfect bottom of the second, but then things really unraveled in what ended up being a 4-run Marlins fifth. Strasburg gave up a 1-out first pitch bunt single to Jazz Chisholm Jr., gave up a 1-out RBI double to Garrett Cooper. The baseball went off Michael Franco at third base into left field for a 4-2 Marlins lead. Strasburg issued a 1-out wild pitch. Strasburg gave up a 1-out RBI single to Jesus Aguilar to center field for a 5-2 Marlins lead, and Strasburg had Aguilar down at one point 0-2. Strasburg gave up a 1-out double to Avisail Garcia off the left center field warning track, though Aguilar got thrown out at home plate via a nice relay setup, Victor Robles to Luis Garcia to Riley Adams. And then came the big blow, and it was a shame that Strasburg's night had to end with this, a 2-out 2-run bomb by Jesus Sanchez to right field for a 7-2 Marlins lead. Strasburg had Sanchez down 1-2, the home run going a projected 417 feet. And then that was it. Strasburg got pulled from the game. I have not yet seen Davey Martinez's postgame session with you guys. What did Davey have to say about how Strasburg pitched?
He also was encouraged. He even said, I'm going to be results biased, was his exact words. And I thought that I got a laugh out of that. He knew that people are going to look at this two different ways. You're going to look at the numbers, and then you're going to look at how he actually appeared to be. And Davey liked what he saw from him if he didn't necessarily like the results. He brought up the pitch selection, and I noticed this in the first inning especially. He didn't throw a single changeup in the first inning. It was fastball, curveball only. That first inning I thought was weird. There was only one hard hit ball, and it was actually a ground ball out. The rest of them were relatively soft contact. There was zero hard contact in the second, third, or fourth. And then all of a sudden, the fifth, 4 balls were hit off of him at, I think, 96 miles an hour or harder. So to my untrained eye, and they didn't quite, acknowledge this, but I think deep down they would probably admit it, he was fatigued by the 5th inning. Yes, he had thrown 83 pitches in his last rehab start, but it's a different animal. And when you're in a big league game against a big league lineup, it's going to be a little bit different. And so I looked at that 5th inning as more a case of fatigue than anything. And this is especially on that last pitch, I couldn't believe he didn't throw him a changeup there. That pitch had been so good for him all night. We know the fastball had not been as good. You've got a lefty hitter up there, 2 strikes on him. And it felt to me like Strasburg he knew this was it. He knew this was his last batter. And he tried to hump it up and see if he could blow a fastball past him, and he couldn't. And he put it in the wrong spot. And I asked him afterwards, if you could have that pitch back, would you think you'd change the execution of it, or would you even change the pitch selection? And he smiled and said, probably a little bit of both. So I think he knew deep down that he needed to go to the off-speed stuff more. When he needs outs, that's where he has to go. I don't think, at least at this point, that the fastball is going to be his out pitch. So, those are learning lessons. These are things he's going to figure out along the way. You've got to remember, he hasn't been in competitive outings in such a long time. He hasn't found himself late in a game trying to make a big pitch in a long time. And he's working with a young catcher who's working with him for the first time. And so I'm sure Riley Adams maybe had a different, feeling on it, and maybe not the same maturity that a Yan Gomes or a Kurt Suzuki would have to call for a changeup in a situation like that.
Yeah, it's interesting that the usage of the changeup gets called into question. Second time in this series that happens with an starting pitcher. This came up with Yohan Adon in game 1, right? That Davey wanted Adon to throw his changeup more, and Adon ended up not doing that in that game, and now he's pitching for AAA Rochester. With Strasburg, look, I think everyone understands 2019 Strasburg is probably gone and never coming back. The question is, can you get a close enough approximation to that? Can you get someone who's, serviceable, if not maybe even pretty good for you over the remaining 4 seasons of this contract after this season? It may well be that Strasburg becomes a 5 and dive guy. And, if that's the case, you can live with that if those are 5 good innings that he's giving you game in, game out. But, we just don't know what is in that arm. And, I think that's why the velocity thing jumps out. But, you mentioned Riley Adams. I thought that was interesting. Keibert Ruiz was not the starting catcher. Riley Adams was. This was not a day game in terms of a game 3 of a series, because God forbid the Miami Marlins ever have a day game in game 3 of a series. So what did you think about that? That kind of jumped out to me looking at the lineup, that Riley Adams, not Keibert Ruiz, was Strasburg's catcher for this game.
I wasn't that surprised because of Ruiz catching the first 2 games. I know it wasn't a day game, but it is still, would have been 3 in a row. And the fact they don't have a day off now, they're going straight home to play the Brewers. The fact they were facing a lefty in Tyler Rogers. And so I think Davey was going for the offensive side of that a little bit more, with Adams being a right-handed hitter against him. And he pointed out also, and I think this had probably been planned here for a few days, that Adams and Strasburg had been meeting for a couple of days to go over game planning and starting to get to know each other. We got to remember, neither of these catchers had ever caught him before outside of, bullpen sessions in spring training, never in any kind of competitive game. So they have to learn him a little bit. And maybe because he wasn't starting the first 2 games of the series, Adams could actually spend time with Strasburg. I don't know if they were in the dugout together during games, talking things through or not, anything like that. But I got the sense that they had been planning this out and trying to get on the same page for a couple of days in anticipation of it, knowing that he would start. We'll see. I would imagine, just because of how important Ruiz is in the long-term picture, he's going to catch Strasburg soon enough, maybe the next start, and probably the majority of them. But I also thought it was cool that Riley got to do this one for this reason. He's a San Diego kid, grew up in the area. He grew up watching Stephen Strasburg. This is where we are now, where you have teammates of his who grew up watching him. And tonight he got a chance to actually catch him in a game. And you could tell that did mean something to him. I think it made sense for this outing, given the circumstances. I don't know we'll necessarily see that all the time, though.
You can always email us at the Nats Chat Podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Email from Owen Ranger. Even with an ugly final line, I think that Thursday night was successful. Strasburg had movement on everything and didn't look like he was laboring. The 3 first-inning runs got on base via a bunt. Speaking of which, the Nats need to stop giving Jazz Chisholm bunt singles with the shift. A bleeder off the glove and a walk where ball 1 should have been a strike. I think that every TOS guy has lost some velocity after his return, and if Strasburg is going to be 90-91 for a while, I doubt he ever sits higher than 93 again. He should probably be more selective with the fastball, especially the third time through the order. The home run was on a third consecutive fastball, but the biggest win of all will be having Stephen Strasburg back on the mound on Tuesday. So yeah, that echoes a lot of what we've been talking about. Look, you grade on a curve with this start number 1. If, in each ensuing start here, he's giving up in the neighborhood of 7 runs and only lasting for 4 2/3 innings, then the conversation does start to change. And look, the velocity could go up. I mean, I don't think we should just assume now that this is what he is, 90-91. But there is a difference between being 90-91 and 92-94. He was in that 92-94-ish neighborhood before the TOS. So, to get back up to that point, which isn't a great point, but it's something, that's meaningful. If you're at 90-91, it's hard to make a living that way in today's MLB. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. But good to have him back. And, I guess the big thing will be, how does he feel on Friday morning and Saturday morning? And, does he do his normal in-between start throwing and things of that nature? I guess that in a lot of ways, that's the biggest test right now, is what happens in the coming days.
Right. And I think we said all along, okay, the focus is on just get through this game and come out of it healthy. And then we don't really know anything until we see him come back and pitch 5 days from now, and then 5 days after that, et cetera, et cetera. And I think back to the last 2 years, he would have a good start sprinkled in there. And then 5 days later, he'd come out, and in the second inning, he's doing the whole thing with his arm and not feeling right. So I'm not going to declare anything as far as him being out of the woods or having, just because this was encouraging from a physical standpoint, he's still got a ways to go to prove that he can hold up start to start over the course of weeks and ultimately months. So we're not there yet. This was step 1 in that process. But I do think there were good signs there. I do think that there's reason to think the velocity will go up a little bit. I don't think we're going to get much beyond 92, 93. But I agree. I think there's a difference, 92, 93 versus 90, 91. We'll see. I think he can probably get there. And I think above all else, I mean, look, if they had cut short this outing after the 4th inning, even with the velocity down, I would have said, boy, that was really good. A sort of shaky first inning that had some weird quirks to it, and then some dominance after that. It really was the 5th inning that sort of defined this and turned it from a potentially very encouraging outing to a disappointing one from a results standpoint. And I want to believe that a lot of that had to do with stamina. Give him a chance to build the arm up more to the point that he is approaching 100 pitches on a regular basis. And I think you may see a better close from him in his starts. And if he doesn't, if that does become an issue every time he gets to the 80 pitch mark, all of a sudden he's getting hit hard. Okay, now we got a problem. But for a first outing, I'm not going to read too much into that. I want to see this the second and third time out and see some improvement there.
Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. It feels like everything is going up these days, including home prices. And so there's no better time to have the look of your home go up and the value of your home go up with new windows from Window Nation. Get 2 free windows with every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing for 2 full years. Take advantage of this offer. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. It's getting hot outside. Weather impacts your windows. Hot days can cause a caulk to crack, seal failures, and condensation. Window Nation only uses top-of-the-line materials, including mold spray and Quad Max sealant. Window Nation is the best. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com and make sure that you ask for the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi. 2 free windows for every 2 windows that you buy, plus pay nothing for 2 full years. 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com. And make sure that you tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Rogers straddling the rubber now, puts the toe in front. Has the sign, come set. Runners go, the 3-2 pitch. Swung on and lined to the left field, a base hit. This is going to score a pair. Robles has scored. Here comes Thomas in from second. He scores as Adrianza stops at second base. Juan Soto comes through in the clutch with an opposite field 2-run single to make it a 1-run game. It's now Miami 3 and Washington 2.
As for the Nats offense in this game on Thursday night, 4 runs, 9 hits, a double, and 8 singles, 3 walks, 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Nelson Cruz was a late scratch. Did Davey say why Nelson was scratched?
Yeah, back tightness. And they are going to send him for an MRI after they get home on Friday. So that's maybe a little more concerning. He's been scratched a few times this year because of the back. I think there was one groin. Maybe one other thing, a neck or a knee.
He had an ankle.
Ankle, yeah, okay. So, and in each case, he missed one game and he came right back. The fact he's going for an MRI is maybe a little bit more concerning here. We'll have to find out, how that comes out. But it was late. It was only a few minutes before first pitch when they made that decision. So I think he was warming up for the game, hitting in the cage, taking swings like he normally does, and said that his back was tight. Look, he's 41. These things are going to happen. The key is you got to manage it and make sure that you take care of it before it becomes anything worse, because for a lot of reasons, the last thing the Nationals want to have right now is Nelson Cruz miss any length of time.
Yeah, August 2nd is closer than anybody thinks. All right, so look, it's hard to get worked up about lineups right now with the Nats, but why was Ehire Adrianza the number 2 batter on Thursday night? I mean, was Davies' lineup written in stone, and so when he had to scratch Nelson Cruz, he could only alter so much? I didn't understand this at all. And again, I know the Nats are rebuilding. Does this really matter? No. But Ehire Adrianza, this was his second start of the season. His track record screams he's not a good batter. You have someone like Luis Garcia who's been pretty good, and Luis Garcia is batting 8th in this game. Basically, you could have batted anyone but Ehire Adrianza in the number 2 spot. And Ehire Adrianza on Thursday night went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts and left 5 men on base. I'm not second-guessing this, though. I'm first-guessing this, and I'm guessing I'm not the first person to first-guess this off what happened on Thursday night. Do you know why Davey had Ehire Adrianza batting second on Thursday night?
I would say it was a product of a few things. He gave Cesar Hernandez the night off, the first time all year that he's done that. So now you have Adrianza as your starting second baseman. This was already planned before Cruz was scratched, so that didn't impact that at all. Now, you're right, Cruz gets scratched. You could move some more things around, and they didn't do a lot of that. I would guess it also had to do with Lane Thomas against a lefty. We've seen him hit leadoff some, and with Cesar Hernandez out of the lineup, you want to keep Thomas in that leadoff spot, and he has been hitting the ball well and continues to hit the ball well. And then the third part of that would probably be that Garcia, I get what you're saying about him. He's hit well. Why not move him up? I think sometimes with a young player who there's a big spotlight on, you all of a sudden move him up to the top of the lineup and he gets a big head and starts thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that, instead of leaving him down in the lineup and keeping the pressure off of him. So I would say those are the reasons why. I do think it backfired in this case because Adrianza kept coming up in big spots, especially the 5th inning when they're down 3-0 and the bases are loaded with 1 out. And he swings to the first pitch and taps a grounder to third. Now, thankfully, Juan Soto picked him up. The next at-bat drove in 2. But that was the moment in this game that I thought to myself, boy, that's not the guy you want up with the bases loaded and when you really need a big hit.
Could have done a lot of things. Could have had Soto second and Josh Bell third. He could have put, Michael Franco second. There are a lot of other people. I would argue in the lineup that was out there on Thursday night, Ehire Adrianza may well have been the last guy who should have been batting second. That's an argument you can make. And, one of Mike Rizzo's favorite sayings is, well, you are what the back of your baseball card says you are. Well, what the back of Ehire Adrianza's baseball card says is he's not a very good hitter. His thing is defensive versatility. And look, Ehire Adrianza in this series, his first series playing for the Nats in the regular season, played left field, third base, and second base. I'd like to know the last time any Nats player did something like that in a 3-game series. Played a corner outfield spot, third base, and second base, 2 premium defensive infield positions. So, I'm not trying to trash the guy, but come on. I didn't understand that at all. So anyway, I probably made more of a deal of this than I should. But man, I just thought that was really odd seeing his name in that number 2 spot on Thursday night. Well, you mentioned the big hit for Juan Soto. I guess he's a listener of the Nats Chat podcast, because we were saying he's not been having an impact on games. He only went 1 for 5 on Thursday night, but that was an impact hit. Like, that's a Juan Soto moment here on Thursday night in a Nats 2-run fifth, a 2-out, full count, bases loaded, opposite field, 2-run single to left field to conclude, by the way, an 8-pitch plate appearance and cut the Nats deficit to 3-2. That was only Juan Soto's second hit of the series. He only had 2 hits in the series, but that was a really good piece of hitting, and that's the Juan Soto we have all been begging to see more of here lately.
A line drive to the opposite field off a lefty at the end of a long at bat. Yeah, that was classic Juan Soto. I think it was only his 5th hit with runners in scoring position this season, which is crazy to think about. That felt like a really much needed situational hit for him. And, in that moment, I'm thinking, okay, they're making a game of this. Strasburg is pitching pretty well. They're going to maybe take the lead and get Strasburg out of there with a lead and then go to the A bullpen. And then it just kind of fell apart after that. But for at least that one moment, that's what we needed to see more of from Juan Soto. He also hit a ball well to left in the final at bat of the game. It was caught. It was a line drive, and they're down 3. There's nobody on, 2 outs, so it wasn't like it was going to make that big of an impact. But he needed that single in that spot, and you just hope that he gets more opportunities and makes the most of them when he gets them again.
2 Nats on Thursday night. Each got on base 3 times. Josh Bell and Lane Thomas. Bell, who was back in the cleanup spot for the first time in a while with Nelson Cruz scratched, 2 for 3, 2 opposite field singles and a walk. Isn't that funny? He bats in Nelson Cruz's spot and does what Nelson does so often, go the opposite way. Bell had 2 opposite field singles on Thursday night. That's so odd how that can happen. And then Lane Thomas, starting left fielder for the Nats, number 1 batter in the lineup, 2 for 4, RBI double, a single, and a walk. Lane Thomas is on a nice run here, and that RBI double, that was in a 2-run 7th, an opposite field RBI double to right field on a 1-2 pitch to cut the Nats deficit to 7-4, and actually 2 runs ended up scoring on the play. He only got 1 RBI thanks to a throwing error by the Marlins right fielder, Luis Garcia. These numbers are inflated somewhat by the 3-home run game, but Lane Thomas in this month of June has a .448 on base percentage and an .852 slugging percentage. He's on a nice run here. I mean, he has had now in this month of June, it's not like June is that old, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 multi-hit games in this month of June. He's on some tear, and it really started with that 3-home run game at Cincinnati last Friday night.
So Davey said he looks right now like he did last season after they acquired him. And that's a very good sign if that's the case. We've been talking about it. You've reached this point. Put him out there every day. Put him near the top of the lineup and see what he can do for you. Sink or swim. Let's find out once and for all. So that is very encouraging that he could do that, not just against lefties, but against some righties as well coming out of the bullpen. That was good. I want to see more of that, whether it's him in left and Robles in center or Thomas in center and Yadiel Hernandez in left, whatever the case. Aside from just the, regular days off that guys need for rest, I would put Lane Thomas in my lineup and have him hitting near the top of the lineup pretty much every day right now. Let's find out for sure what you've got.
You mentioned Yadiel Hernandez. So with Nelson Cruz scratch, Yadiel was the starting DH on Thursday night. He batted in the 6th spot, 0 for 4. Yadiel's OPS for the season is down to 711. It was at 822 through May 28th. May 28th was not that long ago. I know Yadiel hasn't played like every game this season, so each game it weighs more significantly on his season rate stats than it might for other players. But still, that's a 111-point decline in his OPS over these last few weeks. So kind of funny how as he has gone down, Lane Thomas has gone up. It's almost like coincides exactly. Like starting in late May is when Yadiel started to struggle, and starting in early June is when Lane Thomas got going here.
Yeah, the universe is telling us only one of them can be up, one down. It's George having everything go well for him in the opposite episode, and all of a sudden Elaine, everything goes wrong for her, and then Jerry is even Steven. So who's even Steven on this team? Stephen Strasburg.
Might be, yeah. Although he wasn't so even on Thursday night. He's got to get more even moving forward. Nats bullpen on Thursday night was good. 3 Nats relievers combined for 3 1/3 scoreless innings. Erasmo Ramirez, who I feel like we haven't seen much of lately, 1 1/3 scoreless innings. Jordan Weems, scoreless bottom of the 7th, although he did his best for that inning not to be a scoreless inning. Gave up a single, a walk into wild pitch. And, Paolo Espino came in, and I guess what you have to say for him is a high leverage spot because the Nats were only down by 3 runs. So by Paolo standards, that's like a scoreless game in the 9th inning in October. But Paolo, a perfect bottom of the 8th. The Paolo Espino ERA for the 2022 season now is at 2.03. We are on the doorstep of Paolo having a sub-2 ERA in this 2022 season. Can we please have this man pitch when the Nats have a lead? Is that something that will happen at some point this season?
Yes, I'm going to predict that it will happen on this next homestand because I think he's going to start a game, and you would hope that his teammates can give him a lead at some point. He's almost got the sub-2 ERA. He's almost got a sub-1 whip now, 1.013. And I looked it up. It's 26 and 2/3 innings this year, and he has still yet to pitch in a game that they either led or trailed by fewer than 3 runs. It's crazy. It's crazy. I hear Davey mention it, that he does want to start using him in bigger spots. It hasn't actually happened yet. I do think we're going to see him get a start here at some point because of a doubleheader they have next week. If not, I do think you're going to see him pitch something that resembles a more competitive situation because, frankly, he has earned it more than some other guys who pitch in those spots.
So you just sort of teased this. Next up for the Nats is this 11-game homestand that's going to begin with a 3-game series against the National League Central leading Milwaukee Brewers at Nationals Park. Game 1, Friday night, 7:05. Eric Fedde will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2, Saturday afternoon, 4:05. Patrick Corbin will be the Nats starting pitcher. And then Game 3, Sunday afternoon, 1:35, is a Nats starter TBD. Is Paolo Espino, you think, going to get that start for Sunday afternoon?
No, I actually think that one's going to be Evan Lee, who was warming up conspicuously in the bullpen in the bottom of the 8th this game. It was not going to come in to pitch this game. That was we're holding off on you just in case we need you tonight. Like we said, what if Strasburg gets knocked out early? Okay, once it was clear we're not going to need you, go ahead and throw your standard bullpen session, which you would do 2 days after you started, which he pitched 2 days ago in long relief. And you would do 3 days before you start a game. So that to me read as he's going to start Sunday's game against the Brewers. We'll see. Maybe something changes, but that certainly seems to me like how you would handle him to set him up for that. But they are going to need another starter because of a doubleheader next Friday. It doesn't necessarily have to be that day, but at some point during the week, somebody else has got to make a start. And I got a feeling we may be seeing Paolo Espino get that chance to do it.
Yeah, this is some stretch. Like I said, 11-game homestand, 3 games against the Brewers, 3 games against Atlanta, and then 5 games in 4 days against the Philadelphia Phillies next Thursday, June 16th through Sunday, June 19th. That's going to be like an NLDS, Nats Phillies, 5 games in 4 days like that. That's crazy. What we're going to end up having, of course, we'll have the retirement of Ryan Zimmerman's number during that series. You tell us what you think. You can hit us up on Twitter at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com, including if you would like to sponsor the Nats Chat Podcast. Email Tim Shovers again, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We welcome your thoughts on anything that we discuss. So you tell us, Stephen Strasburg on Thursday night, Laurel or Yanni, which one was it for you when it came to Strasburg's 2022 Major League debut? All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast. We're going to leave you with something special. So in the ongoing NCAA Baseball Championship, is Virginia Tech having advanced to the Blacksburg Super Regional? The number 4 Hokies going to be facing Oklahoma in a best-of-3 series in Blacksburg Friday through Sunday, although the game on Sunday may not be needed if the Hokies take the first 2 games of this series. And sending in this report on the Hokies in the Super Regional is a diehard listener of the Nats Chat Podcast, Akul Mehra. He is class of 2021 from Virginia Tech, and he took the time to submit this report. So first of all, we say thank you, Akul. This is very cool of you to do. We appreciate your help. And we say go Hokies this weekend against Boomer Sooner. And we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Hey Tim, Al, and Mark. Here is a brief background of Virginia Tech baseball this season and what to expect for the Blacksburg Super Regional this weekend. This season, Virginia Tech started out 0-4 in ACC play and finished with a record of 19-9, winning their last 9 ACC series of the season. Currently, they are ranked number 4 in the country and were actually number 2 at one point this season, behind just Tennessee until they lost to North Carolina in the ACC Championship Tournament. They are currently 44-12. Hokies head coach John Sheff actually coached at the University of Maryland from 2013 to 2017 and has been at Virginia Tech since then. He did well at Maryland, taking them to 2 Super Regionals and had an overall record of 179 and 120. Coach Jeff's first couple years at VT were rough, as he went 21-33 and 26-27 with horrendous ACC records of 8-22 and 9-21 respectively. They started out really hot in 2021, but cooled off as the season went on. And for that reason, there were very low expectations for 2022 and were predicted to finish dead last in the ACC this season. Now they're nationally ranked in the top 5. This season, Virginia Tech made the NCAA Regionals for the first time since 2013, one of the longest droughts in the powerhouse ACC. As the hosts, they knocked off Wright State and Columbia twice to get to the Super Regionals. Back in 2013, when they last made the Regionals, VT was eliminated at home by Oklahoma, which is exactly who they get to face off against this weekend in Blacksburg. I'm sure they'll be looking to get some revenge. For Virginia Tech, sophomore Griffin Green and freshman Drew Hackenberg have been the starting pitchers for the Hokies for games 1 and 2 of almost every series this season. Their Game 3 starter has varied throughout the season. Green is 7-2 with a 4.52 ERA in 15 starts, and Hackenberg is 10-2 with a 3.1 ERA across 15 starts. They're a phenomenal 1-2 punch. The Hokies' batting lineup is straight up offensive, no pun intended. Their top 3 of Nick Biddison, Gavin Cross, and Tanner Schobel might be the best top 3 in the country. Biddison is hitting .353 with a .420 on-base percentage and a .523 slugging percentage. He's hit 12 home runs and driven in 45. Cross is batting .335, on base of .416, and slugging .610. He himself has 16 home runs and 48 RBIs to go along with his 1.260 OPS. Gavin Cross is the number 9 ranked 2022 draft prospect per MLB.com. Lastly, Tanner Schobel is hitting .373 with an on-base of .412 and a slugging of .580. 18 home runs and a whopping 73 RBIs this season. I think you can guess who he's been driving in. I could do this with every hitter in the lineup, but that top 3 is special, and I thought it was worth highlighting. I want to give a quick shout out to Hokies first baseman Lucas Donlin, who I played Little League with and against in Great Falls Little League in Northern Virginia growing up. And Game 1 of the Blacksburg Super Regional between Virginia Tech and Oklahoma kicks off Friday at 3 p.m. Game 2 is at noon on Saturday, and Game 3, if necessary, will be played sometime on Sunday. The winner of this 3-game series advances to the College World Series. Keep up the great work on the podcast, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about the Hokies.